Welcome to this week's episode, which is all about Instagram marketing for fashion brands in 2018. This episode was first broadcast live in my Facebook group, Fashion Brand Builders. You're welcome to come and join us. But I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Ali Smith from creativegangsters.com, who's an expert in Instagram marketing, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of what she has to say. So please stay tuned. And if you enjoyed the episode, then please like and subscribe. So I really want to talk today. The focus of today's session is really about the value that Instagram as a marketing channel can bring for fashion brands, and really, how we should be thinking in 2018 about how we can maximize using that channel. So I want to start, I guess, by asking you a question, because there's been a lot of changes around Instagram recently, and I know we've been talking about that, right?
Yeah, every single moment it seems there's something new.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, is it still a good place for fashion brands to be? Absolutely.
You should be on Pinterest and Instagram for sure.
Okay, and why do you think Instagram is so fundamentally important for fashion brands?
I would say it's the most important one because it is an inherently visual platform. Instagram is all about the visual representation, and so is fashion. And so it is, you can talk and write about fashion in a magazine, but it's nothing without the image. And so Instagram is the perfect digital magazine spread for you to connect with your audience directly. I mean, because any fashion consumer between the ages of 17 and, let's say, 45 is on Instagram. There's 500 million daily users and almost 1 billion total. So it's not that whether or not they're on Instagram, it's how are you going to reach them? And we can talk about that a little bit later. But they're there, and they're looking for fashion outfit of the day, like hashtag OOTD, one of the biggest hashtags in use.
Yeah, so they're turning up every day to see what's hot, what's trendy, and what's cool. So I guess this is a chance for brands to be involved in those conversations and put themselves out there.
Try to lead that conversation and partner up with influencers, which we can also talk about a little bit later.
Okay, great. So I'm just thinking, like, the change. Maybe we should just briefly touch on some of the changes that have happened in the past 12 months on Instagram, because I know you're quite hot to trot to talk about that stuff. So do you want to just update us on the changes?
Oh, it's the elephant in the room. It's pretty rough. Okay, so if you've been on Instagram for 5 years, and I have been with different endeavors, it used to be easy to get followers. You would post something and you could get 50 to 100 followers per day, depending. And now, since Instagram is now owned by Facebook, if you didn't know that, most people know that, and organic reach is almost dead, is what they call it. And so you're not going to be seen very much without paying for exposure. And as well, since Facebook did their huge PR disaster in the last couple of weeks when they found out that they've been selling data, Instagram, since it's owned by Facebook, just this last couple of days has made a major change. And most third-party apps are not working today. So even the legit ones that are partnered up are not working. I use Planoly. It's not working. Several other apps. And those ones will start working again, probably, but anything bought is gone. They changed the API in the back end for safety.
But so, I don't actually think that's a bad. In some ways, I think it's a good thing, because when I look at my Instagram feed and see the comments, sometimes, even though I try and be quite careful about the hashtags I use, there's so many bots commenting on and really diminishing the Instagram experience for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. But there's good bots and bad bots. And as far as automated comments, there is no such thing as a good bot. It's always bad. I tell anybody I come into contact with, do not use them. I, for one, have seen comments like, hey, this is such a great work. Keep it up. I love your picture, on human trafficking posts or on posts for funerals and miscarriages. And I've seen it over and over again. And anytime I mention it, everyone's like, my dad's funeral, I was, posting something. And then you get these horrible comments. So, and those users might be good people, but it doesn't matter because you have instantly ruined your brand. So now that we have that out of the way, yes. The good kind of bots, or maybe an app called peoplemap.co. There's a few tools for growing your audience and connecting and creating lists of power users. So this is something that a company would use, or a digital marketing company would use. And those don't work right now either. And that's huge. So even perhaps Nike couldn't go in and see certain things right now because they've just basically pulled down a black veil until they figure out their security issues.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a heavy-handed reaction right now, but I mean, it's a reaction that needed to happen, but it is quite.
Agreed. I totally.
They'll dial back a bit. It'll become they'll find a middle ground, I'm sure, because everyone marketers need to be on there for a reason and generate content for people that people want to see as well. It's just not making it spammy or overreaching in terms of the data that you take from people who are on there. I think that's all it is. So
they make money to stay in business, and to do that, they have to give data to certain marketers.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I just want to. So now we've kind of talked about the big picture of Instagram in 2018. I want to get a bit more specific about what we can do to show up more often in people's Instagram feeds. What do you think are good tactics for getting our posts in people's feeds on a more regular basis?
Okay, so there's going to be two things. So number one, it depends on how big. I'm assuming that I can't see your comments right now, but I'll go in afterwards and check just the way they're doing. Like if you're a brand new brand or just starting, or if you're a more established brand. So that might be a little bit different. Like if you're a fashion designer and you're just establishing a portfolio, I would keep it as a personal account. But if you're larger and need to run ads, you have to have a business account. And also with the new API changes, it's going to also require certain accounts to move to business account. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
Because a lot of maybe personal or business.
Do you think? You think some people will be forced to move across to business accounts because? As
of today, I read that. Yeah, because something like People Map or even Iconosquare, anything that allows you to manage comments from a third-party app will no longer be supported on a personal account.
Okay.
And that's a big deal. Because managing comments just on a phone can be almost. I mean, you can do it, and I have done it. But if you have a bigger account, maybe 100 comments, you need to do that on a desktop app.
Yeah, it just gets too heavy, right? It's just too.
Right. Oh, you'll miss them, and then you'll miss that opportunity to connect. So you may be forced to go to a business account. And
I think it's also hard. I think the hard part when I first started using Instagram was the fact that it's so demanding that if you want to build these relationships with people, that you have to be diving into the app all the time. And I'm sure Instagram loved that, but from a human level, you can't really sustain it in the long term. So we kind of do need some of these apps to help us as marketers because we need lives too. I would say. I would say
it's not that I'm using a bot to comment. I'm actually commenting as me, but I can do it in a fraction of the time and effort online.
And be organized. Okay. All right.
So, but in order to, back to your question, to show up in people's feeds, you're going to show up in your ideal customers' feeds if they have interacted with your content. So it's going to come back down to engaging visual content and asking for some sort of action. Share this with a friend, tag a friend, but not in a spammy way. Drop a comment. So anything that Instagram will notice that you've interacted with this, hey, that content must be pretty good. They like to show you more of the same. So just like your Amazon list of, you may also like to buy XYZ. So that's how you're going to show up.
Yeah, so they know that if you've engaged and you've already liked loads of pictures of sunsets, they're going to be showing you more sunsets on a really simplistic level,
Well, my 5-year-old sometimes I'll be like, hey, be the intern. And I'm just joking. And she'll hold my phone. And then I come back and my feed is nothing but kids. And that's the same thing. So if you're tagging maybe or partnering with fashion bloggers, and by the way, the big fashion bloggers can get $100,000 a post, like the one with millions of followers. Wow. So you're going to want to start with the low to mid-range people, micro-influencers, maybe 5,000 followers or 10,000 followers up to 30,000 to start, because that's going to be reasonable. And they might do it for a free product or something like that. But that works. So that's grassroots engagement. Get people that get your name in front of places.
I think that's great. That's great advice. And do you think in terms of asking people to turn on notifications, because I see that a lot, they're like, follow, get my notifications. Is that a good tactic to follow?
I don't know if it's a good business tactic. I wouldn't do it, just personally. I've seen it, and I think it looks spammy to me.
It looks a bit try hard, maybe. You know,
It does.
a bit
If
desperate.
you put it, I would put it in the caption. Like I wouldn't put it in your bio. Your bio is precious real estate, and we can talk about that in a little bit. That you only have 150 characters, I think it is currently. You can put it in your caption and be like, "Hey guys, I don't want you to miss this. Can you turn on post notifications?" Or a gentle ask is going to be better than the arrow of turn on post notifications.
Yeah, it's just too desperate, isn't it? I mean, because most of us are trying to most of us who are educated brands and marketers are trying to make ourselves seem a little bit special and exclusive with whatever we're doing. So I think if you're a bit too desperate, then it's really it turns off and pushes people away from you and your product.
Vera Wang and Target wouldn't say put on post notifications. No,
it's not
even
classy. Yeah,
designers wouldn't do that. So you got to think of yourself as a bigger brand, even when you're small. Like even if it's just you, you're like, I am developing a personal brand or a small business brand that maybe I could sell someday. I mean, is still an asset, even if it's you. So you got to think of terms of I'm going to look like I'm a little bigger, a little.
One way I like to think about it is, do you want to be from a branding perspective, do you want to be the person who has that fluorescent sticker on the DVD case that's being sold for really cheap in the store? Do you know what I mean? Or do you want to be classy about what you're doing? And even if you are starting off small, if you've got to control that perception early on, I think, control that story of how you're perceived by people. But I think this might be a good time to talk about the bio as well, actually, because I hadn't planned to talk about that with you, but maybe it'd be great to get your insight about how people should be using their bio moving forward.
Okay, so there's a good point. Since you guys are brands, it depends. Are you a personal brand? Are you going to pivot into something else? So I think most of the people most of the brands actually don't push themselves as individuals as such in the way that marketers might. They're much more focused just around the brand name, or they might have the person's name. Like you might have someone like Karen Millen, who's a big fashion brand, but if anyone hears the name Karen Millen, or like Calvin Klein, they don't really think about the individual. They're thinking about the brand, right? Okay, so it depends on the size. And so in that case, you might consider using we. So it's still first person rather than Karen Millen designs bags for the uncommon woman, or something like that. You can still say we design, or we hold design in the utmost respect, something like that. So it helps to come from a we perspective rather than third person, like they do this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
If you're a solo designer, definitely you can stick with I or we. The bigger you get, you can change that. Give it compelling, like make it a reason to follow. I mean, and go through, here's what I do is I get a piece of paper and write down 20 accounts that you love. And of different sizes, because you don't want to go to someone with 3 million followers, because what they do is going to be this different from a 10,000 account. So I look at ranges and look at all their bios and say, what's in common? And often the profile picture, well, if it's a single person that's smiling, obviously you can use a professional model. I wouldn't just use a logo, except in rare cases. I would add something else to be compelling.
Yeah. You want, the bio is such an important, especially if you're an unknown brand or you're a new brand, then it's a real opportunity to tell a story in very few characters, but tell a compelling story about what's different about you, I guess. But,
And who your audience is. You're talking directly to that ideal client. So you're going to be like, for the discerning something, or for the young and hip, irreverent millennial, just be very specific and talk to your buyer.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost I guess if you're going to do a checklist, it would be, you want to do something which shows that you're different, and also something that calls out the person who is your perfect customer as well, I suppose. And
that leads us into one of the most important parts of your brand, is your grid. So the top 9 to 12 images is what someone will see on their phone from your account. If they come to your account page, this is my imaginary phone. So here you go. You got your phone, and don't bet on anybody scrolling down ever. I mean, you have like less than 3 seconds of someone's attention. They're going to look at your profile photo, a quick glance at your bio, and your images, 9 images. If you don't get them there, they're gone. and they may never come back. With 500 million daily users, they're going to find another brand. So your top 9 images need to be beautiful and compelling, especially for a fashion brand. So they need to be strong images that can tell a story. They need to be brand representative and perhaps color and cast, in your brand colors, or if you're doing something for a launch for a particular line, make it flow. So it's like it's your magazine.
Yeah.
It's your little catalog.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it puts quite a lot of pressure, I suppose, and on you in a way, in people in a way that every 9 pictures you put up have to be a good representation of your business. Personally, I think sometimes it's okay to be a little rough around the edges, that it's okay to sometimes pull back the gloss a little bit off from what you do and show a human side to your business. I think being fallible and human is okay too. I think it just needs to look edited. Does that make sense? Like curated.
Yeah. And there's a place for raw, and that's a good segue into Instagram stories. Instagram stories, you can show, this is us with no makeup working till 3 a.m. to meet a deadline. This is the craft room. This is design scene. Anything like that where you can really connect with people. And if you're not using Instagram stories right now, everything changes with Instagram. It's the most important thing. So it's more important than your grid, more important than your bio.
Can you just introduce Instagram stories for people who might not be fully aware of it yet and what it is? Okay,
great. So if you've heard of Snapchat what sold for some $1 billion recently, Instagram decided to take down Snapchat. And so they have directly competed and adopted most of those features into Instagram. It's less than a year old, I think, for the stories. Yeah, it's definitely less than a year old. So I'm going to show you real quick. So if you open it up, it's separate from your main grid. And in the upper left-hand corner.
Just show us your content, because I don't want to get into trouble. Okay.
Gotcha. Get there, and if you just clack this little camera, you can either take a new picture, or you can select one from your camera roll.
Okay, all right.
And then you're going to just tap it. It's more informal, and it shows up like in a slideshow at the top of Instagram. And if you add a geotag, these are the 2 things you need to do: a geotag and a hashtag. And I can show you this in the comments later. I can go take some screenshots because I do want you to see this.
Oh, great! Yeah.
It can double your views, and it will be shown to people who don't follow you. So they're trying to really push Instagram stories, and you can do video, you can do slideshows, you can even use Canva to create templates that are on brand for you and do sales. And it's a great way if you're selling a product directly through Instagram, that's the perfect way to do like a fall sale or a spring special. And then you can include a link if you have a business account.
And these stories have a lot of reach as well then?
They do have really good reach. They last 24 hours, just like Snapchat did. But they just introduced a new way to save them. So within your own account, it's called a highlight. There's an option to add a highlight, and that means it's from your Instagram stories. And there's a hidden archive that you can't see on your account, but you can choose from at any time.
Oh, okay, so fantastic.
You can show for fashion brands, lookbook, how to wear it, instructional sales, anything like that you could include in your stories.
Okay, so I guess if you're going to get a little bit clever with this as well, that you could set up a little video template in something like iMovie.
So smart. And Photoshop has too.
Yeah, and then you could just it's my summer sale or it's my winter sale, and you just have to change a few things around, and you could drop that into Instagram.
Absolutely. So here's a little trick. Is it okay if I could talk about Creative Market really quick? CreativeMarket.com.
Sure.
They often have Monday freebies if you sign up for their email list, where they send you Instagram templates. So I've done that for clients. You can customize it to your own. And if you're a Photoshop user, they have only been Photoshop thus far. So if you're just a Canva.com user, they may have some in there. But if you're willing and ready to customize your templates, you can use that every week, every day, have a new story.
And I just thought I'd add to it, if you're not familiar yet, because not everyone is actually aware of Canva yet. It's still not. Oh. Yeah, there's still a few people out there who don't know about it. Canva is a great cheaper version of Photoshop and doesn't require such a high knowledge or technical knowledge of how to put images together like you do in Photoshop. So Canva is a really good tool, and they have a really good free version of it, which you can do a lot with. So if you need to generate nice looking images for Instagram, that's a great way to get started. I think it's canva.com.
Mm-hmm. Great, entry level, easy to use.
Yeah, totally. So I guess we kind of, in terms, I want to just touch on hashtags, if that's okay, and just talk about because hashtags are interesting because hashtags are a way that you get discovered. Like you also would get discovered on Twitter when people are searching for certain topics. So I could hashtag marketing on my posts, and you could hashtag Instagram marketing on your posts if you want to get found specifically for that content. But how many hashtags do you think we should be using, and what kind of hashtags do you think we should be using?
That's a really good question. Okay, so there are differing schools of thought of how many you should use. And just realize now that this will change because Instagram is so dynamic and changing all the time. I currently use between 20 and 30. 30 is the max. Sometimes I'll use 4 in my caption itself, and then you can follow up in a comment and include them, and that currently still works. There's always talk of maybe the ones in the comments don't work anymore, and so experiment with that. I have not seen an engagement difference yet, but do use them. You can format, and you can go through and see how some people format so they're tucked at the bottom so it looks a little tidier, but you should be using them. And so here's something to think about with hashtags. I think of it as inbound and outbound. So people who are looking for you for fashion will be looking for certain things, outfit of the day, which you actually probably shouldn't use because it's such a huge, like 53 million uses or something so big that it will get swallowed up in the volume of those posts. But something more specific, blogger look of the day. I'm not familiar with all, there's millions of hashtags, but start researching. So you'd pull up a Google Drive doc or an Excel spreadsheet, something like that. And you're literally, or a piece of paper, going to start writing down small sizes. So hashtags between 5,000, maybe and 20,000 uses. And it'll say right on Instagram how many times it's been used. And then maybe from 20,000 to 100,000, 100 to 500,000. And then to 2 million, and then up. Once you get beyond that, I would only use like 2 to 5 of those. So you're going to grab a little bunch from each of these sizes so that you can get your content seen by the most people.
There's actually a really good app that you can use, actually, that I can just gonna tell people about now. It's called Webstar.me. That's WEBSTA.me. I'm not sure what they do to monetize. They must have a monetized version of this product, but on there's a search feature for finding hashtags, and it also clusters hashtags together and tells you the amount of volume of posts with those tags on. So that's really a great way of finding new tags and not ending up with these tags. You kind of think, oh, it's great that there's 20 million people who have got posts about that tag, but it's not, because you're just going to get lost. And also, up until recently, that meant loads of spammy comments and spammy people following you and then unfollowing you straight away. Fake
engagement can help you.
Yeah.
But here's something else, another trick that I do is you're going to want to look at your Muse accounts and your competitors. So Muse accounts is basically what you want your account to be when it grows up. So the best and brightest version of your, I keep thinking Vera Wang. I don't know. I need some fashion help. You guys can help me later. You look at those, and then you can they're not going to use that many hashtags because they're so big. Then you might go look at a fashion blogger or a peer account who's maybe an up-and-coming designer or a brand. You're going to go look at their hashtags. And if you do it on the web, you can copy and paste. You can't do it from within the app and Instagram. And then you put it in a notes app. And then you can just kind of see, I wonder how that's working for them. And you're just going to really analyze it. You're not cheating or copying. You're just being aware of what's out there.
I think that's really smart. And I think, like you say, as you grow, you don't need to do so many either. And
use sets. Yeah, don't use the same ones over and over again. Instagram tends to punish that because it looks spammy. So I have a notes app, let's say I probably have 200 different sets.
Wow.
I know, well, that's over like 5 years or 3 years of doing it. So I may have like 5 sets that I use frequently, but you do need to change them because you're not hip anymore. They change. It's like TV stations or movies, new things come out, become popular.
And the spammers catch on as well. I think that's the problem is once a hashtag becomes really popular, then the spammers just jump on it, and kind of that hashtag is kind of gone, unfortunately.
Well, there's a joke among content marketers because sometimes we create hashtags for brands or something to take off, and when we're like, once it gets hit up by like the pornographers or something, or in the spam, we're like, we made it. Our hashtag's finally big enough, because there's a point where every time it happens, it gets gross. And then you're like, my little hashtag grew up, but
that's it. Just it's gone off into the clouds. That's it.
Yeah. Time for a new one.
Okay.
Anything that kind of gets over really 6 million, you're going to lose. You're not going to be seen the way you need to be seen.
Gotcha. Just moving on now. How often do you think we should be driving, changing up our content on Instagram? Because I probably make the mistake personally of just doing the same style of feed the whole time on Instagram. I admit it's not my number one place to be as a marketer that I'm really concentrating on, so I'm being a bit lazy. But from a fashion brand's perspective, how often should they be changing up their style and doing something a bit different?
So that depends. You can stick with one style, and if it's working, you can leave it forever. Like if that's your classic signature style, you can stick with that and just change little things. Like there's certain magazine brands like Instagram handle Kinfolk. Some of the design magazines, they change a little bit, but it's so distinctly theirs. Mm-hmm. And there's others that change every week. So it really depends on your brand. Is it dynamic and fun, or is it more classic and classy? I think it would just depend. That being said, I advocate 5 to 6 content categories that you rotate through. Mm-hmm. So like you said before, showing a little bit of raw behind the scenes can be one. An up-and-coming special, a self-promo category. And then, my particular niche is like coffee and travel. So I show the same kind of things, food and beverage. For design, you could show fabrics and texture, runway, definitely models, definitely, or maybe not even the face, but your clothes in action. Something that's going to appeal to your audience.
I mean, the texture's a great one, actually. I think that's a really, really interesting one, because that's something, when I'm studying photography, we always talk about line and form and texture. And actually, texture isn't used that often by fashion brands in their Instagram feed. So I think it really could be used a lot more. Yeah. And
actually, shots with texture do better because people pause on their feed. It's just anything that visually will catch your eye, and you're like, huh. Instagram will count that actually as engagement.
Oh, so they register when you slow down.
When you stop, because your eye has paused. That's why people stop at puppies and stuff. They're like, oh, look, puppies. So you think about that. A lot of the aerial shots for travel, if you see sand and water, that's a really popular drone shot right now. It's because there's texture and color difference. So I think for fashion brands, color is going to be one of your main ones. I'd say color, texture, models, and anything else that fits your brand.
Yeah. And obviously, for me, like emotion has always been a big part of what I think drives engagement with people. So I think if you can get some emotion across in some of your posts and seeing people being emotional about what your brand does, then I think that could really help drive some responses and engagement as well.
Whether that's happiness and joy or a sultry look. And one other thing that's important for an up-and-coming brand is to use user-generated content. So that's content that maybe a blogger wearing your outfit or your clothing or your bag. You want to repost them with permission, but they're going to give you permission because they're delighted for the exposure as well. But that way, people are more likely to tag you as well if they think you're going to repost them. So it's also a way to start conversations of, hey, can I send you a bag? Are you interested in the post?
Yeah, I think Instagram, working with influencers is obviously a huge way of being successful on Instagram. I think you're 100% right there. So let's just, how often, talking about trying to drive engagement with people and trying to grow our audience, I just want to think a little bit now about how often we should be following and liking on and commenting on potential customers' posts. So if I've done my research properly and I'm selling a certain type of handbag and I know a certain type of woman is going to buy that handbag, and I can go out there and I can stalk them in the nicest possible sense on Instagram. How often should I be doing that? Should this be one of my major tactics for trying to grow my audience and trying to get customers on board?
It's a hard topic because in like 2 years ago, you could this was my job. So like 6 hours a day, I would be driving engagement, posting, commenting, liking. But that's how you grow an account to 20,000 in a year, by doing that without using bots. I talked to somebody else who's a social media influencer. He did the same thing. His was 2 to 4 hours a day. My guideline for anybody is at least 15 minutes a day. Everybody can do that. You can do that on the treadmill. You can do that with little tricks that I use for dictation. If you have the auto dictation feature on your phone, you can leave a comment that way, a genuine comment. Don't bother just saying beautiful.
No, that's just,
wow,
it just
that
works.
was amazing on
yeah. And something specific about the image or the brand as well, right?
Exactly. That's why that color brings out the blue in your eyes. That looks, or even, hey, I remember you saw a similar cut on this person. And you can do that with the dictation or with typing, but it's really hard to do with the texting on the phone. It'll set you apart. Like if a brand commented on that would, and not only that, but if you comment, other people see that comment. So if you just send a DM, that's just between two people. Mm-hmm. If you comment, you could potentially have, like if you comment on a big fashion influencer's account, that could be seen by 10,000 people, depending on who's reading the comments.
Do you want to, in which case, does it make sense to get in early with your comment on big influencers, or does it not matter because they show the most recent first, so it doesn't matter?
I don't have any data on that. I just get in there when I can get in there.
Sure.
There's been a couple over the years that I've had post notifications on, but I don't have anybody's on anymore.
Okay. All right. So we should, anyway, this is a really solid tactic, actually, for, liking people, finding your ideal customer, liking their Instagram posts, putting real comments on, and trying to build relationships with people, especially when you're an early stage brand, because this is not something you have to pay someone else to do. It's just your own time.
Mm-hmm. Which is valuable as well. So that's why I try to be on at the peak hours of the day. Again, certain apps will show you that, which may or may not be working right now, but business insights within Instagram will show you that. Like, this is a good time of day to post when your audience is on. Comment, and then what else would be, like, find a Muse account and like a brand that's similar to yours, because the people following that brand probably would want to follow you too. So if you have limited time, and of course we all do, I would find the account most like you and target their followers in a nice, polite way.
But that makes perfect sense, and they'd only do it back to you anyway. This is just, that's the reality, right?
Yeah. And work with influencers. So can we spend just a second talking about?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
There's a good way so I myself am an influencer in another space. So there's different expectations. Someone might offer me they shipped me a bag of coffee and then expected high resolution photographs of me using it, and then sent back to them. No, I mean, if I like it, I will. Get the product. They're under no obligation to send you anything. If you have a verbal arrangement or a degree, hey, can I send you this? We would love a post. You legally can't give a product and then require a post if it's a gift. There are some. I
guess you can't. Yeah, I guess it's probably against the Instagram. The rules of Instagram.
Otherwise, it's a transaction, and it's okay. I do plenty of things for a trade,
mm-hmm.
but you just need to have expectations of what going in. Like, usually somebody won't do a post for less than $100 value,
mm-hmm.
depending on how big they are. So I would think of the threshold. Maybe for a $20 or $30 small item, they might give you a post or stories, and you can ask. But there are plenty of micro influencers who do it for products and not require cash. The bigger ones will require payment.
Which is a great way to get started with influencers, especially, I suppose, if your product itself, it costs you time, but the materials aren't too expensive. It's a great way to purchase marketing, I suppose.
And the ways that it's been more successful are those who say, oh my gosh, we would love it. We're not requiring you to do a post, but if you like it at all, we would love your feedback, and a post would be great. Something like that.
And I just want to actually just briefly mention something about this while I'm here. Actually on board with a new influencer app that's coming to market very soon. It's very exciting. So if you want to learn more about that, you can contact me via the website on the screen, and I'll hook you up with that. It's a really, really innovative way of doing influencer marketing. So just want to touch I just want to wrap up the session now, Ali, and just think about a little bit about some final thoughts on Instagram marketing for fashion brands and what they should be thinking about doing for the rest of the year? You know, what takeaways should they? What takeaways should they really? You know, what should they really focus on with their Instagram this year?
I think you're going to be the most successful if you create passionate loyalty and fans with people. And you're going to do that through emotion and making them feel good. If someone, you know, like the campaigns that focus on natural beauty or that empower the consumer, ones that drive kind of like that fanatic desire and loyalty, tap into that and ask questions and say, and you can even show testimonials too in your captions and be like, so-and-so loves this because this, and this is why we do what we do. We are passionate about the ingredients we use or the sourcing materials or ethically, you know, whatever your thing is, talk about it all the time. Just to start conversation. So that's my number one thing. Is it conversation worthy? Something you're posting. Not to put too much pressure on every post, like we said, like sometimes you just got to post something. But in general, be worth talking about.
It's about being remarkable, isn't it? That's ultimately, it's about being remarkable. And I think you're right. Not every post can be, you know, 10 out of 10. And sometimes you're just going to be putting out, you know, oh, we've just released this item of clothing or we've got a sale on. But other times you want to do something that makes you a bit different, and sharing your purpose is one of those things that you can do. What you believe in.
Exactly. And if you can do that in a way that makes your audience happy, like you want to be that happy place. Or, you know, people go to certain accounts I go there for inspiration because their stuff is like on fire, that kind of thing. Or I go there to this account because they always make me happy. Or I go to this account because they're so they're artistic oriented, maybe with the colors and the fabric. So whatever fits the personality of your brand, just do it over and over again. And that way you won't get so tired of your own account, because that happens. You get fatigued posting every day, trying to come up with content. The closer you can stay to what's true to you and your brand, the easier it will be.
I think that's brilliant advice. And after we've spoken so much about Instagram today, and as you're such an expert in the subject, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of working with you, perhaps, Ali?
Oh, I'm so excited! I am literally putting the finishing touches on a new teachable type Instagram course that's free, and I'm putting the finishing touches on today and tomorrow. So if you just want to, I can put the link into the comments of this later if you wouldn't mind. Is that okay? Or go to creativegangsters.com and I'll have sign up later this week. But it's 5 days and 5 ways, just easy with screenshots, how to trick out your gram, either launch a new account or tweak an existing account.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that's go to creativegangsters.com. It's actually the address that's on the bottom of the screen as well in the video, so you can... Ali's really good at this stuff, so I would encourage you to go ahead and check out this course. Thanks for watching this week's video. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, and if you want to stay tuned with what we've got coming up, then also subscribe to our channel and don't miss out on our next cool training video. You are also very welcome to come and join us over at Fashion Brand Builders, our Facebook group. I will see you all again soon. Thanks for watching.